Okay, we're live 2022. All right. Let's post this in another group. All right. Whoever hops on, feel free to tell us who you are and where you're from. 2022. It's already happening. 2021, I can't remember anything about it anymore. I just know that to a certain extent it blended in 2020, except that we had a different person in office. So there's that. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes, obviously, before I get started. Um, I guess one important thing is I do want to mention what questions I'll be answering tonight. And so let me look that up because I always forget off the top of my head. Okay, whoever hopped in, make sure you let us know who you are, where you're from. All right, so the questions I'll be answering tonight, in addition, of course, to any questions you guys might have, are pros and cons of having a remote company. That's one. Two is easiest and most difficult client types. Okay. And three is what do I look for when targeting new clients? Hey, so whoever's in here, make sure you say hi. I'd love to know who I'm speaking with. So exciting day today. And again, if you're just hopping in, I'm just waiting another minute or two before I get started. But good to see you guys here. So early in the year, 2022, this is the year we make things happen. Barker Force, hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. I used to say that all the time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Uh, hey, relax your mind. Welcome back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you people in here. Starting off 2022 correctly. Hi, Bridget. Good to see you. Bridget, where are you from? All right. Okay. All right. So we got a fifth person. Whoever's in here, just announce yourself if you don't mind. Let us know where you're from. We're 4 minutes in. I would say in the next. Kansas, awesome. I too am from the Midwest. I'm in Chicago. Yeah, so I'm gonna. With 4 minutes in, I'm gonna wait till say the 6 minute mark, and I'll just start. I'll get going. Essentially, the purpose of this call is to answer any questions that you guys have regarding the call center industry. The virtual receptionist industry, or business in general, or entrepreneurship in general. Just anything that I can really talk about and be valuable on the topic. And then, of course, I also have three questions that I am prepared to answer that were sort of pre-written before the call. But I like to prioritize answering those that are asking questions live on the call. That's why we're doing a live question and answer. So, yeah. So about 1 more minute, and I'll start talking. All right. Relax your mind. I'll answer that in just a moment. But that's a very good question. She asked, does your course break down how to hire international contractors? Good question, good question. Okay, so we're at 6 minutes, so I will get started. Again, I'll say it one more time. My name is Donald Fan, and I teach a course called Call Center Cast. It teaches people how to start a virtual receptionist company, or what can be called a premium answering service. So, way better business model, I believe, than a traditional answering service. And it's based off of a company that I founded back in 2015, built and then sold in 2019. Okay. So, again, the questions I'll be answering outside of the live questions are: 1, pros and cons of having a remote company; 2, easiest and most difficult client types; and 3, what do I look for when targeting new clients? Okay, so relax your mind. Does your course break down how to hire international contractors? I'll answer that first. The simple answer is yes. And honestly, I'll just give you an answer. I can answer that question now. If you're looking to hire international contractors, one of the nice things about hiring internationally, if the person that you're hiring actually, reside and does not have a U.S. citizenship, if they reside international, then you're able to hire them and employ them for your company, and you don't actually have to deal with payroll taxes or even filing. So payroll taxes for W-2 employees, and you don't even have to file a 1099 in the traditional contractor sense. It's actually just put on your taxes as just a general business expense. Of course, you can say it's payroll, but it's categorized as a general business expense. And so in that case, it's actually a lot less complicated, which is really cool. Also in the course, I do mention my staffing company that is focused on sourcing international talent, primarily in Eastern Europe, for most of the call centers, which are usually in North America, but of course we can hire them out to anywhere. So we bring it up. I would say the process is essentially the same. Just do a couple Zoom interviews and check over the resume and CV, get a sense of whether or not they're a good fit for the job. And I seriously don't treat international people any different from American-based hires. The only thing that's usually different are the amount of wages that they are paid. And so, yeah, there's that. And there's probably a bit more of an emphasis. There's probably a bit more of an emphasis on making sure. Barker, for a good question. There's probably more of an emphasis on making sure that an international candidate had good internet connection and infrastructure to be able to maintain uptime when they're taking calls for your company. Obviously in the U.S., it's it's a first world country and all that, but most importantly, it's a large landlocked country. And so instead of it being like an island like the Philippines, the U.S. isn't really susceptible to like tropical storms, at least most of the U.S., that can just take out the entire power grid and have, random agent in the U.S. not able to take calls. It just doesn't happen often. Philippines, it happens all the time, right? Eastern Europe, that did not happen. They have great infrastructure, and that's why we like to source them with our company, 8 Staffing. Okay, so I hope that answers your question to an extent. Relax your mind. Bucket Force asked, couldn't be on your call with Paul. I recently interviewed one of our students, Paul, on how he built his company. What did he mean by making processes, and how does one do that? So, making processes is so funny. When people say it, they always sound so like, it makes people sound pretty corporate and like all kinds of smart stuff. Oh yeah, we use some type of system for there's no real system for making processes. The only thing you really do is you outline the things that you do in order to get certain tasks done in your business. So, when you're putting your business together, you're going to have to do certain things. And once you start to run and operate your business, you have to do certain things. So, when you onboard a client and you bring them into your phone system, there's a sequence of steps that you need to follow in order to get all the information in and configure a new client into the phone system. And then you need to, send them an email saying, hey, you're configured, your account's ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And those sequence of steps, a new hire isn't going to know what it is because they don't know the sequence of steps. And so rather than you like manually telling them, every single aspect of what to do, you just have it written down somewhere. When I do processes, I tend to just do a video on it, just like how I did with the course. I literally just create a video, and you'll just have a training section somewhere. You could have it in Google Drive, you can have it wherever, and it'll say, this is the video on how to onboard a new client into our company. This is a video on how to set up a new agent in the phone system. This is a video on what we do when we complete a call and then we send out an email to a client. This is a video on how we charge our clients. We go into Stripe or whatever we do. This is a video on how we create our invoices. So everything that you personally do to run the business that has to get done, you can create videos on it and stuff. And then now you have the process outlined and documented. So it's really just as simple as that. I would say the only thing that separates someone from, being a process outliner versus not, one is taking the time to do it, and two, making sure that the information is organized in a spot where other people can access it without, going through all kinds of crap, trying to sift through the information to find it. So it's not complicated. There's no real, system to it. Relax your mindset is basically like a procedure to complete a task. Yeah, like literally. I mean, it could be anything. Like when I, go to do this live thing, there's a real simple process I do. I make sure I'm not on Safari. I'm using Firefox instead, because even though it uses a decent amount of bandwidth, it's the most reliable. And you know what? Right when I said that, it said chat disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect you. So I'm going to try to chat something, see if it works. Hey. Any of you try to chat something in the chat, and I want to see if I see it. It's hilarious. Right when I say Firefox is the most reliable for YouTube Live. Okay, so it said unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. This is aggravating. Well, okay, so I'm just gonna have to continue to answer that. So yeah, it's a procedure to complete a task, just outlining what you did. Make sure I press a certain button on YouTube, then I press another button. I fill out these, pieces of information that YouTube asked me for, and then it says go live. I press go live, make sure I do that at a certain time. Then I share the link to the Facebook group, and then now I've started to type in the questions I'm going to be answering. So that's like a sequence of steps that I'm going to continue to do every single time, and simply writing that down or maybe doing a video on it because it's quicker than writing it down a lot of the time. That's outlining the process. So, pretty simple. Um, but the thing is, you'd be surprised the amount of, especially new company owners that don't get around to taking the time to do those things. A lot of people, you know, they're just trying to run the business, and so it's like extra effort in terms of taking the time to outline everything in a way that makes sense to new people. And it feels like it can be sort of a drag sometimes to feel like you need to create these things. So seriously, not a lot of people do them. So the people that do them, they have a serious advantage over people that don't, because again, it's easier for newer people to come in and be able to get ramped up more quickly because they can just refer to these videos and stuff. And so when someone's training, you can still get other things done even as a tiny company, while that person's training, learning about the business, and getting themselves in a position to be more self-sufficient more quickly, so they're able to start truly helping out in the company earlier on from the date of hire. Okay, the chat is still not working. I'm really not quite sure what to do in this situation. If I cut it off, it's gonna turn this into a recorded video that I can't hop back into, um, which is pretty annoying. Um, Maybe I can do a part one and part two. That might be an option. Um, I wish you guys were able to chat me to tell me what you preferred, but okay. So unfortunately for right now, this is what I'll do. Um, so what I'll do for right now is I'm gonna answer the three questions that are here, and then I'm gonna cut this off, and then I'll hop back on to see if there's any questions that you guys have while I'm talking, and then I'll answer those questions separately. And I won't, I'll be done with my other questions, so I'll power through my questions really quickly, and then we'll just have a part one and part two for the January 5th question and answer call. Okay. So very quickly, the pros and cons of having a remote company. I would say the pros of having a remote company is that it's the ultimate way to create and run a company in a lean way. Obviously, you're not spending money on offices and all that stuff. If people aren't coming in, especially in the call center space, you don't need to necessarily buy all the phone hardware, or buy the different computers and that for the office. When it's remote, you're typically hiring people that are using their own computers, and maybe you'll buy a USB headset for them. But it's just a lot less expensive to get started. Also, it's quicker, right? And you have the ability also to reach out to a much larger talent pool. When you have physical offices, your talent pool is pretty much limited to people that are either able or willing to get physically down to the office at a certain time of day, whatever. Like some people, they might be in a different state. You got to pay relocation fees or something. Online, they can just be at home as long as they have a good internet connection and all of those things. Um, yeah, the chat's still not working. So the cons is that it's a little bit harder to do quality assurance because people have a lot more autonomy. You obviously can't just lean over anyone's shoulder. Not that you want to, but the reality is that it's a little bit easier for someone to not really do everything they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. Now, most of the concern normally they're completely mitigated by the fact that you're running a call center company, and the phone system within the call center company is Darren just messaged me saying we can all see the chat on the video, FYI, except for me, I guess. So as soon as I talked about this Firefox thing, that's when it went out. You know what, Darren? Do me a huge favor. Since I can see you and everything comes up on my Apple Watch, if someone has a question, if you don't mind copy and pasting it, and then I'll just answer it that way. We'll just do the complete MacGyver workaround to get this done. So I'm just gonna chat you. If you can hear me, please do that. That'd be great. That way I don't have to cut the video off, and it doesn't have to be two parts. Um, uh, okay, um, so yeah, the most of the con with the lower level of ability of sort of like seeing what people are doing, it mitigated that with the fact that you're using call center software. You're able to see, depending on the system, pretty much everything your agent is doing at all time. It's not like they're on video, which I don't advocate that for that type of thing. But you can see whether they're logged in. If someone doesn't answer the call quickly enough, there's usually not a very good reason. They're either there to answer the phone or they're not, right? There's only so many times that you can get away with saying, "Oh no, I was right there," but everyone else is able to answer the phone, and for some reason they aren't, right? So because they have to be there answering the phone, they have to be there, on recorded call, actually helping out the customers based off of what's showing on the computer screen, and then sending off accurate information to the clients at the conclusion of the call. You can't really fake your way around that. Now, in our call center at Vicky Virtual, we would have people like, especially those that had like two screens at home or something. They might have Hulu or Netflix on one screen, then they'd have the phone system software on this screen, and then they just pause the show when a call comes in. I'm completely cool with that. It's the type of thing that makes them a little happier with their job. They're still able to perform and be just as helpful as anyone else. So yeah, Darren, if there's any questions that come in, just copy and paste it. I'll answer it immediately. So if any of you guys have questions, feel free to type it in the chat if you can see it. I'm assuming I'm the only person that can. And then my buddy Darren over here, who is a recently new student and tribe member, can just chat it to me, and then I'll answer it right here. So, I'm sorry this is happening, but that's the best I can do right now. So I don't think it's a huge con in the call center space to be able to do things remotely and have remote employees. We had over 100 people, and it wasn't a problem at all because, phone systems just catch everything. And as long as the agents are answering the phone and doing a good job on the phone and, hitting their metrics in terms of, answering around the same amount of calls as everyone else, having the satisfaction and rapport levels that everyone else has, then there's no reason to let them go. Okay, Barker 4 via Darren asked, do the most companies you onboard have the same process? Okay. So that's a great question, Barker. When you bring on a new company and there's different types of companies, do they have the same onboarding process? And the answer to that is basically yes. If a company did not fit into your process, then they're usually not a good fit. But the process is basically, without giving away everything, the process is basically, someone signs up and then they submit the onboarding form. And on the onboarding form, there's this, you can go on Vicky Virtual's website or wherever and see this. On the onboarding form, it asks a list of questions about their business and blah, blah, blah. And so when they submit that, they're basically submitting instructions about how they want their call to be handled. And then so you basically take that information, put it into the phone system, or wherever your script is. And then, once you finish all that, you get a phone number assigned to that client. And then, so when a call comes in, the agent knows what company is being called, and they know what the instructions are because those instructions were input into the onboarding form by that company that just signed up. And so once they start forwarding calls to their unique phone number, right? They have a unique number. None of the other clients are using that same phone number. So you attach the company name in the phone system to that specific client phone number, and the agent knows what company is being called. They'll see the instruction, and they'll handle the call based off of those instructions. So that is like the high level onboarding process, onboarding scenario for just about every single client. The only ways in which things differ is when people say things like, "I want a different type of greeting." There's usually a standard greeting and a change it to whatever they want it to be, which is like 5% of the time. There might be people that ask for like, "Oh, I want you to log into the software with you." Now, some of you'll launch your companies and decide you don't want to do that. We did it for almost a year, then we stopped doing it. And there's some people that do it. If you listen to Paul's interview, we talk about that and how he handled logging into other people's stuff. We cover that a lot. So by and large, it's pretty much the same for every client. Okay, Barker Force also asked, did you close new businesses mostly on the phone or via email? So when I started, the way that we landed the majority of our clients when we started off was actually through our initial network, as well as sort of content marketing, as well as in terms of pure outreach via the phone. And once our content marketing and SEO efforts kicked in, we just started like literally a month 4 or so, we started getting some inbound leads. And we had a real close, and I would say in month of July, the 7th month in business, where we were able to convert. I can't remember how many signups there were, but we converted 17 past trial into paid signups in that month alone, and these were all inbound. And we actually didn't anticipate them. Going into July, we only had 2 agents full time, which is what we started with day one. And so it was a huge scramble in July to be able to try to take calls and stuff and not like collapse, because we were well beyond our bandwidth. We had probably 30 clients or something. And so we ended up scrambling and hiring 2 more people so that we could, get back to having the bandwidth. But the point is that, that was when inbound really started kicking in for us. And so the majority of clients that we got over the course of the almost 5 years on the company were inbound. So I would say probably 70. Well, if you count like referrals and other things, in terms of us not doing any outreach at all to land a particular client, probably 80 to 85% of all the clients we ever got, and we're talking, in the thousands, especially in terms of people that ever signed up and ever worked with us, about 85% were inbound. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming that's all the question for now, if that's right, Darren. And Barker, great question. And Darren, I appreciate you. So I hope that answers the question, though. Okay, so the second question I had, pre-written here is easiest and most difficult client types. So, I answered this a few weeks ago, actually, but I would say, there are certain industries that are a little bit easier to service than other industries, but I would say none of these particular industries are all that difficult. Legal is the easiest as far as industry, which was very surprising to us. We thought lawyers would be like the most difficult and crazy. And then cleaning companies, which we thought would be the easiest, ended up being the hardest because, there's a lot of cleaning business owners or home service business owners that are just sort of starting off, and they don't really know all that much about how to run a business yet. There are some that literally, would hire us on as a service the day they open their company. And so they don't know how to run a business yet. And so some of them would just try to set it and forget it. They still had a day job, and, they just didn't understand the trials and tribulations of business yet. And so, when those inevitably stressful things will come up, sometimes you're going to be in a line of fire in terms of, why something might have went wrong. It was never that bad, but it was certainly more than it happened with attorneys, because with attorneys you're never in the line of fire. It's always they just have an understanding that their business function, the primary business function, has not much to do with you at all. Your only job is to make sure that you're answering the phone and connecting callers where they need to be connected to. So I don't know. They're just on average, the attorney had more ownership of their individual responsibilities within a business, and so that makes for a better client relationship between you as a service provider and them as a business owner. Um, Now, that's industry wide, right? That's a generic thing. Now, individually, uh, there's certain types of clients that are just harder to please than others. Some people just don't really understand or message well with the service that you're providing than others. Some people on the surface, it seems like it, but instead of what they really need is someone like individual that can be as custom tailored to the nuances and desires as possible. When they're using a service, you can only have so many resources dedicated to how you do things specifically, and you can only have so much like one-on-one request when it comes to agents that are assigned to you. When we first started, we were trying to please everyone, and so we uh, we had a few clients that had our that were able to actually like chat message in Google Hangout. They were able to chat message receptionists directly, and some of them really took advantage of that. They were like chatting these individual receptionists like all day, and it was all business related stuff. But it was like, oh, we booked this person. Did you mean this time? Okay. And it was ridiculous. So receptionists basically had two jobs at one point. One was responding via chat to our ongoing customer, and two was taking calls. So at a certain point, it became way too much, and we had to separate that. So we had to create a bit of a barrier between clients and agents in that regard. Uh, but so individually, some people can be difficult, but that applies to literally any business on the face of the planet. Industry wide, surprisingly, legal was the easiest. Okay. Actually, manufacturing is the easiest, but manufacturing is nowhere as large of an opportunity in terms of number of players in the market as there are attorneys. Okay, Barker Force, another great question. How would you approach law firms who don't know your business? Um, you know, the legal industry is the toughest to do outreach to. Um, there's always a push pull with everything, right? Uh, they are the best fit for, in my experience, right? They are the best fit for virtual receptionist companies, but they're the hardest to cold call or do that type of cold email outreach to. Now, I will say that there are plenty of our students that have been outreaching these attorneys, and a lot of them have attorney clients and have gotten them that way. In our personal effort, what we find is that attorneys like to sort of find their vendors or be introduced to the vendors. So that's where the content marketing works very well, because they'll sort of discover you and do their own sort of process. Uh, and so one nice thing to do is to provide the attorney with value somehow, either through some type of resource, some type of blog post that is pertinent to things that the problems that they're trying to solve. Uh, and so the way in which call centers, virtual receptionist companies solve problems for attorneys is that they help them streamline their business. It enables them to get more done by spending a small amount of money. There's a lot of them that will hire like a paralegal, and the paralegal is basically like an assistant to the attorney, especially when they're solo attorney law firms that are starting to get their own business. And one of the paralegal things oftentimes is that they're answering the phone. Now, paralegals have stuff that they have to work on, and in general, one of the sort of spiels in its industry is that when you're interrupted by a phone call, you lose 20 minutes of productivity. You could be, sort of locked in on a tab and get a phone call, and it throws you off for up to 20 minutes per instance. So if you get 10 calls a day, theoretically, you're losing, 200 minutes, 3 hours and 20 minutes a day in productivity. And so if someone else handles those 10 phone calls, they handle the phone call, the callers, their situation or issue is handled, and then the attorney's office, the law firm, just gets an email with the paralegal or whoever's responsible for those types of things in their company. They just sort of get to it when they get to it, right? And so it enables them to be more productive. And so when attorneys haven't used services like this before, they don't understand that value add. And so, sometimes it's nice to write in a blog post that's like, I don't know, 5 tips to, streamlining your law firm. And then like the fourth or fifth tip is exactly what I just said, right? You bring up 4 tips that have nothing to do with your virtual receptionist company. And then the fifth tip is this is how a virtual receptionist company can help. So literally the fifth highlight or line item or tip is literally hire a virtual receptionist company. And then you say why within the context of that article. So it's a value added thing that enabled the attorney prospect to sort of discover the value of the service like yours and then sort of come back around to, as opposed to you trying to pitch them, because attorneys are the least susceptible to BS. They're the least susceptible to people trying to pitch them things because they spend the entire day more than anyone else dealing with people trying to get over on them in some way. They're either fighting other attorney, they might be fighting their own client, or they might be fighting against the other side in some way. And it's literally the most intense battle that exists. So someone calling in and saying, I want to sell you something, they're closed off more than anyone. So yeah, providing that value and having them discover the value in, some type of service like this is what we found to be the best approach. I hope that's not too vague, but there's no other real way to put it without having a half hour discussion on this specific topic. Okay. Okay, so Darren is asking, thanks again, Darren. How expensive is it to start to first client approximately, including everything from ad to software? Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. For me, day one, when I launched day one, I landed a client day one because we did a pre-launch period. And I was in for, I think like $450, maybe $500. And that's based off of how I did things. There are some people that I would not recommend that came in and they just wanted to solve every problem with money. So they just threw a bunch of money at it before they even launched and before they got a client. And they were in the 5 figures. They're spending $15,000, $20,000. There's one guy that literally hired a $60,000 a year office manager before he launched. Now, he had the funds, and it wasn't a problem for him financially at all. But it's just something that it was more expensive that way. And the premise was that he wanted to be able to do things more quickly, which is possible when you have more money and put more money into it. It's usually a little bit quicker. But you have to get in the dirt in certain ways in order to, figure out what approach is going to work best based off of how you set your company up, your messaging, and those types of things. So on average, I would say that the best way to answer these types of questions is not to go off my own experience at this point, but to go off of the students that have come through the program and have launched and have actually gotten to the point where they're, let's say about $5,000 a month, which is really the most critical stage. $0 to $5,000, that's where you figure out if this is going to work or not, right? Once you're above $5,000 in revenue, yeah, you're not quitting your job or whatever yet, but you essentially figured the business out. Like you figured the business out. At that point, it's just a matter of more clients and growth and, creating new opportunity. But from $0 to $5,000, you figure the business out. So everyone tends to make mistakes. You make a lot less mistakes when you go through the program and you lean on the group more. If you lean on the group more and the tribe more, and you ask more questions and you ask me more questions, then you're probably going to be up and running for less than $2,000 to $3,000, and you've got a few clients and you have some revenue coming in. If you do things as smartly as you can, as lean as you can, then you can be under $1,000, especially if you launch if you build your website yourself, that type of thing. And so that's the answer. I mean, it can be completely all over the place. It matters how focused you are in terms of getting in there and solving these individual obstacles and problems yourself versus trying to get that issue handled using money, which with any business ever, it's more expensive to do it that way. So I hope that answers your question, Darren. All right. Darren, any other questions at the moment? And, sorry again that this chat is down. It just said, please try again later. I only have about 10 minutes. So I'm happy to answer a question for at least about 10 minutes. There's nothing that came in from Darren right now. There's some scammers posting in the chat, which is no fun. But, whatever. Let's see. So the third thing, what do I look for when targeting new clients? That's why I know this channel starting to, create some real traction here when scammers show up. What do I look for when targeting new clients? Now, this is actually a really good question. One of the best ways to improve your success ratio in terms of reaching out to people, it's not always. I mean, honestly, the pitch and how you approach and your message and stuff, that is extremely important. But it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is targeting the right person, right? If someone is straight up, like in the perfect scenario to be using a virtual receptionist company, your pitch doesn't have to be all that good. They just need to know what you're talking about, right? They need to know what you're talking about, and they need to have, some confidence that the service that you're providing is able to solve that problem. But, essentially, people that currently have that problem and haven't solved it yet, and that recognize that it's a problem, a lot of them haven't gotten around to solving it because they don't necessarily know that there's a solution. When you come in and you're the solution, that's the easiest thing. And so there's certain, sort of potential client parameters or company parameters that make them pretty good targets. What do we get? Let me quickly finish what I was saying. So when I target a new client, I typically look at company sizes. It's really hard to tell, but you sort of figure this out. I look for companies that are like basically 10 employees or less. I look for companies that are in certain industries, which I talk about in the course. And also in the free email course, I talk about what industries we target. I look for companies that seem like they're doing less than $1 million, but more than, say, $50,000 a year, because they need to be bringing in revenue and consistently working on their business. And I look for people that have somewhat of an updated website, right? There's some people that literally don't have, like if you look up their website, it hasn't been updated in 5 years. That means they don't really care that much about continuing to streamline everything. Sometimes they do, but more often than not, they're, pretty set in their ways, and they're not really investing even mental resources to continuing to improve upon their business. Because frankly, our service is for streamlining businesses, not necessarily for maintaining them. Even if they don't plan on growing, the fact that your service is going to cost them at least a little bit of money. And so the purpose is streamlining. If they don't want to streamline or care to streamline, then even $5 is too expensive, right? But if they're streamlining, then they're going to find value in what you're doing. So I try to find those that seem like they're putting some effort. There's some effort somewhere in terms of them trying to improve their business. Whether that's posting on social media somewhat regularly, right? Like at least every month or so. Those types of things. And so when I find those targets, I usually niche into an industry and I just go through those very wide parameters within an industry and I build out a list. Ones that are on the higher end of what I said are the people I'm going to target first. And then those on the lower end, they're on the list and they get targeted last. And that's how I do it. It's pretty simple. Okay. Miami Life, Viva Miami. Viva Miami. What do we get if we pay the $500? Okay, I guess what you're asking is if you do the 4 payment versus 1 payment, you get the exact same thing you do as if you get the 1 payment. You get immediate access to all the course material. Now you'll still eventually need to make the other 3 monthly payments, but I'm not someone that holds back on the material just because all 4 payments have not been made yet. You get the exact same thing. Okay, will we be able to start the business? Yeah, there's no difference in terms of access to course materials or anything when you pay the 4 payment versus the 1 payment. The only difference is that the 1 payment is basically a 10% savings, when you flush it out versus the 4 payment. So I hope that answers your question, Miami Life, Viva Miami. Okay, Darren asked, what company pay more inbound or outbound? I work for an outbound company and I do cold calls, and they charge pretty high. We get bonuses from $5 to $30 per appointment set, and they pay about $16 an hour. When you say pay more, do you mean like paid more into your business or paid more? I think you mean paid more into your business. Yeah, outbound companies typically, you're going to make more per account. But the only thing that really matters in general is the amount of call volume that's happening. Whether it's outbound or inbound, the one that's going to pay you more is the one that it's like in any context, it's about how many minutes are happening. So, the outbound company, there's some that only needs you to make 5 calls a day, and there's only so much you can charge them. So if an inbound, had 10 calls a day, then they're going to be paying you more. But yeah, generally people that do outbound campaigns, there's a marketing component to it. And so they try to reach out to as many people as possible. And if the marketing is profitable for them, they try to scale it up pretty fast. And so, yeah, there's less of a limit to it. And so I would say on average, those are going to be larger accounts. But what I will also say is that we actively stayed away from outbound clients because you're providing, in a sense, a different service. You go from being a receptionist to a salesman. And when you're a salesman, we get bonuses from $5 to $30. Now you got performance incentives. Now you have to include the metrics of, how many did you close out of the 100 calls you made? How come you didn't close this person? Well, I listened to the call, and it seems like you should have said this when you said that. With receptionists taking inbound calls, you don't worry about those things. You don't worry about how often you close the deal. We would specifically tell every single prospect, hey, listen, we're not salesmen. We don't guarantee a certain closing percentage. And so what that does is it enables your agents to breathe a serious sigh of relief as they work their day, because rather than, showing up and having to perform, they're simply showing up and doing their job, right? They're showing up and helping people in a way that isn't tied to anything other than resolving issues. When there's a performance incentive, or there's a performance component, now you have to put in that extra effort on every single call and be on the ball, be focused, and blah blah blah. And that's when you start to get the drain. That's when people start to get stressed out. That's when you get turnover, and then that stress is going to build up to you because you're going to be in sort of constant danger of losing that client, the account, and the revenue if you're as a business, as a company, as a call center, not performing to a certain standard. So on the inbound side, it's easy to hold on to a client for 10 years as long as, they don't want to hire anyone in-house and you answer the call quickly and you do those things. When it's outbound, you're like almost constantly in competition with other, salesmen. It's like, what have you done for me lately at all times? So that's my perspective on it. The revenue is all over the place. The opportunity is there in terms of those that are looking to have outbound, clients, but it's just a different business. The reason I was able to have a business be the size it was and only be 5 to 10 hours committed out of my time and to be able to automate those things so easily it because we were not a performance driven organization. Now, in some ways, we're performance driven. We need to make sure that people are happy. We need to make sure that everyone's adherent to answering a certain number of calls, which wasn't too crazy high because we also weren't going for the lower bid on government contracts and using small business margins, meaning we have to up the efficiency to even be profitable. We were going after small businesses. We have a high profit margin. So rather than squeaking out every single call we can get out of every agent and trying to get them to 150 calls a day, we could have our agent taking 60 to 80 calls a day and we're still very profitable. They're not stressed out. Therefore, their supervisors aren't stressed out. Therefore, I'm not stressed out. So that's my take on that. Okay, so are there any other questions? How long is your program typically? So, Miami Life asked, how long is your program typically? Well, what it is a set of pre-recorded videos. There's about 75 of them, and it's self-paced. You just work through it. It's not like a class with a schedule, where you have to show up at a certain time. You just once you purchase into the program, you get immediate access to it, and you start going through it. Some people power through it in a weekend. Some people take a week or two. It's not a tremendously long course. I don't put any fluff in there. I don't spend video talking about theories and hypotheses. Like I just go straight to the meat and the potato, and I give you the information you need. And then if there's anything where people want to, if there's anything that isn't quite clear to someone, which of course happens when you're learning a new concept, then people tend to hop into our Facebook group, the tribe, or to chat me some certain questions and stuff. Like Darren, he's in the program, and he asked me, about the whole inbound outbound thing, which I just answered, right? So that's the type of thing that helps people navigate as they're going through the journey. But in terms of the course material, I personally am not someone to go through a bunch of courses. I've only taken like 2 or 3 in my entire life that I paid for. I'm not like a course person. I didn't create something just to put a bunch of filler in there. I literally put the information that was required for me to personally learn and get to where I'm at. That's what I put in the course, nothing else. Um, so you rely on the course material, which are self-paced, as well as lean on the community and hopping into the live calls if you need to, which my next one starts in 2 minutes. So Darren, hop on that if you can. But each video is ranges between about 5 to 35 minutes. And there's about 70 of them, and it just depends on the topic of that video. So thanks a lot for your time, guys. Um, let's see, Darren typed in something. Um, Okay. So Miami Life. I'm going to. All right. Let me ask this. If I type something, hey yo, can you guys all see that? Can you see the hey yo in the chat? You cannot see that. All right. So Darren, do me a favor and just I'm literally just typing in the link to check everything out. And she might have seen it if she or he has seen the pricing, but that all the videos uh, are within. You get access to it as soon as you purchase it, and there's also a 30-day money back. So if there's any, if you go through the materials and you're like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me, then you get 30 days to, chat me in any way and say, hey, you know what, this isn't going to work for me, and I'll give you a refund. We've only done it twice, so I would say, I stand behind the materials and info, but no hassle on my end. I don't want to hold on to someone's money. Let me see. Oh, all right. Well, it seems like the page is down. So give me. I gotta hop into this other meeting, but let me. It seems like my page is down. So um, as soon as I end this, it's gonna. As soon as I end this recording, it's gonna put this into sort of like a recorded video, which you'll find on the YouTube channel, and I am going to comment when it's repaired. I'll also comment in the Facebook group if you're in there in Miami. But the site shouldn't be down, and I'll probably solve that problem within the next 5 minutes. But I don't want to keep this recording going while I do it. Other than that, I really do you offer? Yeah, so that type of question, Miami Life, is sort of like what Arise is. This isn't a job. This isn't anything similar to a platform or Arise at all. This is you starting your own company, landing your own client. The course shows you how to do that. I don't spend any time at all in any contact trying to, figure out client to hand over to people. Like I'm not a platform. That's not what I do. Arise, it gives you that option, but essentially what Arise is they're basically a platform for people to go on and find work, sort of like going on Upwork or like Fiverr or something, or like Facebook Job Marketplace. It's completely different from what I'm offering. What I'm offering is simply a way for you to be able to, incorporate your company, start your own thing, and launch your own company, do your own outreach and marketing to land your own client. There's no other piece to it. So yeah, I wouldn't even want to be in that business of having to find contract to provide to people with too much work. Loving the heart light. Hey, you know what? I figured out who you are, happily unorthodox, and I'm so happy to hear from you. I hope everything is going well on your end. The heart light is something a friend of mine that owns a heart, like a ring light company, sent to me. So figured, hey, let's roll with it. I like the light. So yeah, I hope this was helpful to you guys. Again, I'm gonna comment as soon as that site is fixed. I'm glad to know that it is. I'm glad to be made aware now that it's been down, which I'm not too happy about. But again, I'll be on next week. I'm very excited about 2022. And yeah, I hope this was helpful for you all. For those in the tribe, feel free. We're going to switch over to Zoom, and I'll see you on there in the next few minutes. So, thanks a lot, guys. And Darren, thanks a lot, man. You sort of saved it call, so I appreciate it.